So I've been getting some tips from you folks out there that maybe my previous Hearts of Iron video was a little bit too excessive. What, you don't feel like sitting through this thing?
Holy shit! Oh, fuck!
So what we're going to do this time around is have a look at the same topics we did last time while also introducing some new ones and also go a little bit more into depth because we just couldn't do that last time. Now, as far as I can remember by this crude list, we went through 29 topics. So to try and keep things a little bit more entertaining and a little bit more efficient, we're going to squeeze 3 topics into each video. So for this video, we're going to take a look at buying Hearts of Iron 3. We're also going to look at unit types and hierarchies. And finally, we're going to look at unit maneuver. So first up is buying the game. Now there's really just 2 things that I have to mention. The first thing being that if you're thinking about getting Hearts of Iron 3, you absolutely have to buy the complete edition with all the DLCs included. When Hearts of Iron 3 got released, it was quite buggy, there was a lot of content missing, so if you want that optimal gaming experience, go for the complete edition, although buy it on sale or through a third-party vendor. Don't buy it for the full $30 or whatever on Steam. Now, while we're on the topic of buying Hearts of Iron 3, there's just one more thing we have to mention. Chances are, if you're looking at Hearts of Iron 3, you've most likely also looked at Hearts of Iron 4. And like a lot of people, you might be thinking, why don't I just buy that game? It's just 2 years old, it has better visuals, it has community modding, and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I personally, and a bunch of other people, prefer Hearts of Iron 3, but to keep things simple, it just really boils down to this. The game is oversimplified. They've removed the HQ structure. There is so much content hidden behind future DLCs. And to top that off, naval invasions and naval combat in general is completely broken in Hearts of Iron 4. And once you're finally in the game, I'd highly recommend that you play as one of the medium-sized nation, preferably in Europe. You can go and play somewhere else as well. But play as a medium-sized country, because if you play as one of the giants, you'll have problems understanding everything and understanding the complexity of your country. But if you play as one of the smaller ones, like Albania or Switzerland and Norway, Denmark, any of these countries, it's going to be incredibly hard, primarily because they have almost no military facilities, no military units, low manpower, and in the case of, for example, Albania and Denmark, they're countries that are historically invaded quite fast by the enemy AI. So I'd recommend you instead play as, for example, Romania, Yugoslavia, Italy, Spain, or if you have some knowledge of grand strategy, you can obviously go for France or Germany or the United Kingdom or whoever. Generally speaking, I'd avoid playing as the Soviet Union just because they have so many units that it's almost intervals. You can see it's up in the left corner, by the way. I'd highly recommend that you start with the Road to War, as you can pretty much do anything you want from this point in the game. If you start at the final point in the game, you're probably going to be quite limited on what countries you can play, but also on what you can actually do. On the right side of the screen, you also have some options. Now, I'd recommend you leave all of these to normal and player control. A lot of people wonder what the game mode setting is, and really the only difference between playing on normal and arcade is that in the normal setting, you have your national supplies that are distributed through like physical roads, basically, to all of your military units. While in arcade, your units just automatically get resupplied from the national cache. That's the only difference. There's nothing else. So finally, you jump into the game, and if your game looks like this with these 3D rendered units, I'd highly recommend you go to the game options and enable counters. Now, if you play as Hungary, your units are always going to look like this.
Yeah!
Now, what this means is that your units will be rendered using NATO type counters instead. Now, counters or NATO counters can be quite confusing, so we're going to explain those next. Counters in Hearts of Iron 3 is basically what represents what kind of unit you have. So for example, this unit right here, this kind of box with a cross, is just a regular infantry unit with no vehicles. This unit over here is a headquarter type unit, like a military staff type of headquarters. And this unit over here is a mountain unit. Now, these aren't the only kind of units in Hearts of Iron 3. There's quite a lot of them. I'll put a picture up so you'll get to look at them yourself. But you will get familiarized with these quite fast. So that's why that I recommend so much that you play with counters. Just get used to it. Because if you play with 3D render units and you don't get used to the counters, you're going to have a pain later on. A real pain. So now that we've taken a look at the very basic type of units, it's also important to talk about what the kind of different units actually do. Regular infantry has a certain amount of attack and a certain amount of defense. Headquarter type units on their own cannot do anything. If you send these headquarter units into battle, they will just retreat within a very short time period because they don't have any attack nor any defense. The same thing goes for mountain. Now mountain units obviously have attack and defense, but they are specially trained to fight in mountains. They can obviously fight in regular plain fields as well, but they have lower attrition fighting in mountains and do best there. So now we know that different kinds of unit have different kinds of stats. It's time to take a look at how we actually maneuver units around. Now, if we take a look at our capital here, Beograd, you can tell that we have a stack of units. There are multiple units below this one. A single unit would look like this, while a stack of units would look like this. Now, because of the way that hierarchies work in Hearts of Iron 3, the unit with the highest rank appears on top. So in the case of me right here, you can tell that the Beograd headquarters, which is our national military headquarters, appears on top. We can either click our way through the stack to find an infantry unit, or we can simply highlight the entire region and it'll list out the amount of units up in the left corner. We can then go and select and right-click where we want the unit to move. Now, when you click on a unit and you right-click on the province you want your unit to go to, the unit automatically finds the fastest way there using infrastructure levels and other things to find the fastest route. Now, in some cases, you may want to go through another route, either because maybe you're outnumbered by an enemy, or maybe you're just crushing a rebel unit, or any other particular reason. The way you list out a specific path for a unit is to hold down Shift and right-click on the specific provinces you want your unit to go to. This will send the unit into a kind of loop until it's reached its final destination. Let's have a look at what this does. Wonderful. Now, in other cases, you might want your units to move over large land masses or large distances. For example, if Greece is invading me, I might want my entire army to move down south quite quickly. We can do this by doing strategic redeployments. This essentially means that your unit will load onto trains or whatever means of transportation it can to get there as fast as possible. In return, your unit gets very poorly organized. So when it gets there, it needs to reorganize. Now, the way you do strategic reorganizations is by holding Control and clicking on the province you want your unit to go to. For example, if I want this cavalry unit to get to this town, I will hold right Control and right click and click Accept. The movement indicator will then turn blue to let me know that my unit is not only moving regularly, it's in fact redeploying. You'll also most likely get this yellow line, which indicates also if you right-click on a province where there is an enemy unit present, you will automatically launch an attack as long as you are able to. So that was part 1 of the tutorial, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoy this type of content, you can hit me up on Twitch. I play Hearts of Iron quite frequently. And you can also subscribe if you wish to stay tuned when the next tutorial comes out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one whenever that is.